Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Topbin90 Podcast. We're back in the studio. We're coming back very, very happy. It's been a great May for Charlotte. Clean sheet after clean sheet, win after win, although we had a draw this weekend. And we've got two of the best Charlotte FC minds here. We've got my man Brian Maurer, Bam Maurer Media. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. I was just thinking, like, if people only followed Charlotte FC by our podcast, they would think we were just an emotional roller coaster. Because last episode we were talking about the Minnesota 3-0 loss and how down in the dumps we all were, and Charlotte FC has turned it around with 4 straight unbeaten. So
an emotional roller coaster. And we also have Mr. Toño Ramos, one of the voices of Charlotte FC in Espanol, also Los Panthers. Toño, how are you today?
Always happy to be here with you guys, and this is a nice streak of wins that we've had. Of course, we tied the last game against Galaxy, but it's still a great opposition just to challenge your squad and see exactly where you are right now. And so far, Dean Smith's work has been fantastic, in my opinion.
100%, and we'll touch on that. And, you also got that extra bonus of Cruz Azul being in the Liga MX final, right?
Yeah, well, extra stress for me. Because being a Cruz Azul fan is not easy, as you might know. A lot of finals lost, so it's quite a challenge. That's a roller coaster of emotions being a Cruz Azul fan, so... by the way, they're going to be here late July for Leagues Cup. So if Cruz Azul wins Liga MX, we're going to have reigning Mexico champions in City. So that was going to be a fantastic game.
Love it. Love to hear that. Obviously, like, you want the most competitive teams here, Not that Necaxa wasn't a good rival, but, Cruz Azul and teams like that are just a different level of gravy coming here. So.
Yeah, and they push your squad to another limit,
100%.
Just like Galaxy did this weekend. And, a draw is not a bad result, honestly. There's some chances that you probably left on the pitch just to capitalize better. But I think the back four is doing a great job, very solid defensively. I see a team that's tactically sound, and that's Dean Smith work.
For sure. Let's get into it. Then the LA Galaxy game, I know obviously we would have loved the win, but I think the win in Chicago to me was like, okay, 7 out of 9 points in 7 days, I'll take that. 10 in May, all clean sheets this month so far. Kahlina's been phenomenal. First, let's talk about some of the changes that we saw. Obviously, we know Yere Uronen was out with that groin strain. And we saw a midfield trio of Brant Bronico, Ashley Westwood, and Jabril Diani. One of the things that we know about Dean Smith coming in, right, and that we're seeing is he's going to be pragmatic when he needs to be pragmatic, and he's going to get points when he needs to get points. So I guess I'll start off with you, Brian. Talk to me about what you saw specifically in this LA Galaxy game.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me the most was because the matchup I was concerned about was Pedro versus Peck on that side.
Yep.
And Pedro, for me, has shown to be a really solid backup option behind Uronen. He might be, for me, the best replacement to any of the starters that is on Charlotte
Even
FC
center
right
back,
now.
right?
I would say, yeah, he can play center back.
Tuiloma and Joao Pedro being a left center back, he could be a great option there too.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, he has been a really, really solid backup option, and I think the way he showed out against, it was a Crown Legacy prospect going up against a club record signing.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like a crucial matchup in this game, and the fact that he was able to help the team keep a clean sheet was remarkable. So that was a really good performance by him.
I had some slight doubts heading into this, right? Because, he didn't have the best game against Chicago. You saw Lindsay come in. So, okay, maybe Dean might want to prefer somebody with a little bit more experience. But you know what? Joao came, and Joao did his thing. So, and obviously, like you mentioned, he's still a young player and just adjusting to this team, right? And that's one of the things I like about Dean. He'll just play the next man up.
Yeah.
Right? Not going to complicate
everyone.
it. Yeah.
It's just going to your depth chart, and he's very, flexible tactically, but he knows when to adapt to certain situations against different opponents, what they facing next week. Okay, I'm going to change the other game because we're going to need maybe more muscle in the midfield with Brand. So having a coach that understands and how to read, certain opposition, it gives you an advantage. It's just providing your players with more information and capitalizing on, moments in the game that how when to defend, when to attack, when to suffer sometimes, because it has happened. And Kahlina has been a hero, the last couple of games. You don't want that just to be the normal thing, but you gotta have a goalkeeper that holds you like Kahlina does it every single time. So,
and I've seen some improvement in Kahlina. You touched on it in the press conference as well.
But he keeps you alive in games. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, and Kahlina mentioned it too. Like, there's been more work from this coaching staff, in that defensive part. And, I think that's really important. That highlights, that Dean has come in and done really good work with his back line and with his goalkeeper.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing that stood out to me, and you kind of touched on a little bit there, Jorge, but Kahlina said towards the end of last season, really worked on his timing on the loose balls over the top when he's clearing it with his head.
He's like the fifth defender sometimes. He's very aware of that spacing.
Yep, yeah. His ability to kind of sweep up play has just drastically improved, and I think it's limited opposition shots a decent amount of the time. And I think it just added also an extra layer of trust for that back line, knowing that Kahlina is back there. So if there is a ball that slips through and he gets through the cracks, that Kahlina's there to clean it up for them.
Yeah, and he's in a contract year too. So just playing at this level, that hey, I'm here to stay long term. If you guys really want me, 6 clean sheets so far. You already have your take to have him in MLS All-Stars.
Yeah, I think he's definitely on the short list. Just the fact that when you're looking at an all-star team, you're generally going by some of the basic stats. You're looking at goal contributions, right? Clean sheets, things like that generally get you at least put on the short list for voting into that team. And so I think Kahlina's definitely got to be considered. There's a lot of goalkeepers that are having poorer starts to their series and that are generally on the All-Star team. Like Andre Blake is having a really poor stretch. We're probably going to talk about that later on in the show. But I think Kahlina's definitely got to be considered as one of those candidates for sure.
And when you're doing it with a very young pair of center backs with Milan and Privet, Privet was part of the match day 11. It's been 3 consecutive games. 3 consecutive match days with a Child FC player in that starting 11.
Point, yeah.
So it's the first time that we've had that. So just Privet's composure, his maturity. He's a guy that he's comfortable with the ball because he played defensive midfielder in Penn State with Crown Legacy as well. So he knows where to find spaces and connect with Ashley Westwood. It's a very clear structure with Kahlina, Andrew, and Ashley Westwood, so you can clear the way faster. So, but again, sometimes you gotta play with Pekovic with a number 10, or sometimes you gotta use Bronico. That's how I like our team, just trying to find ways to, depending on which opposition you're facing, you just really know that Dean's gonna deliver that.
And you also can't ask for anything incredible with his options at the 10, his options at the 9. He's like, okay, well, we just need to get a job done today, and that happens, right? Like Chicago particularly, I didn't think we had a great game, but you got the 3 points, and that's all that matters.
Sometimes those games you end up tying or losing.
Well,
not in Chicago, because Chicago is a place that Charlotte is very comfortable. Is the team in the Eastern Conference that we've met most times. So. But again, those games sometimes felt that, or even the Galaxy game 2 years ago, that's probably a game that we lose at the end of regulation, or just sometimes that it's not, lacks concentration in the last minutes. But again, very young group back there with Kahlina, and of course Nathan Byrne and Joao Pedro and Jere Uronen and Jalen when he needs to play. So that's the 4th best defense in MLS right now, and it's the 2nd best in expected goals allowed defensively per game, per 90 minutes. So that's great
it's
structure.
Night and day from last year. One of the things that we mentioned coming into this season that we needed to see from Dean was a better defensive structure, right? And he's taken the same back line and made it better.
Yeah, and at some point, you got to start creating more chances. And we understand the resources that the team has right now. The transfer window is going to come. But doing this, and I say this with all respect, and with no DPs, it really is even harder to accomplish. What this group of players are doing if you add 2 quality pieces up front, this team is gonna get really,
Even
really
better.
good.
Yeah. And I mean, and taking a bold decision too. I mean, letting Enzo go right now for how I know he hasn't produced, it's still a very, very bold decision. And so he's like, okay, well, who do we have left, right? We're seeing Scott Arfield come in, right?
False nine.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, okay, like.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Dean could probably find a few solutions, and there was one good attacking stretch they had where the 3 shots taken, or it was like 4 shots taken, 3 of them were by Bronico and 1 was by Privet.
Yeah.
So I think there are certain small stretches where if he can kind of find a solution to where the final touch is gotten on one of his more attacking options. I mean, obviously his attacking options overall are limited, but there are definitely better solutions than Bronico getting, I think he might have led the team in shots this last week. And and finding ways to get other.
He definitely had 3 in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. He had 3 right in a row, and then Privet had 1 right in that same stretch.
Yeah.
So there was one that was probably their most dangerous moments, and it was that stretch in the second half. And so if you can find a way to get, I don't know, whether it's Vargas or Ajiman, get him those final touches. It seemed like Ajiman had a hard time getting involved in the game. All his options and his solutions were really just taking on the whole Galaxy back line by himself.
Yeah, and then he had that really far header,
Yeah, right. So I think it's just how do you get Ajiman a few more touches and in more dangerous
Absolutely.
spots.
And when Lee Elevada comes back, he's going to bring more juice up front and hope he's in not just fit, but soccer fit to still contribute like we saw in the first games that he played with us. Even Gedwin, just getting his one-on-ones. I like Gedwin on the left side because he can cut inside. He's very dangerous with that right foot. And Liel on the right wing. That's a pretty decent combo to play, but you just got to create more chances for Patrick because he is very exciting to watch. I mean, poor defenders, they have guard him and just trying to figure out where to, pull the shirt or trying to bring him down.
Yeah.
It's a very different number 9.
Yeah.
Not saying that Enzo was not good enough, but he just brings a different athletic profile just to challenge the defensive
how
players.
How technical he is
so
for
hard.
being so tall too.
Yeah.
Like
his balance, composure.
I mean, like last year, I remember like watching, him in MLS Next Pro. You got these 16-year-old academies
toying with some guys
coming at them, and you're still seeing it in MLS.
He does it with experienced players in MLS now.
Which is wild. Obviously, you guys have touched on it a little bit as well, but we kind of did a comparison that we were waiting, right? Miguel was sacked after 14 matches, right? So we wanted to see, year after year, 2022, Miguel had 5 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw, a -5 goal difference, 8th in the East. 2023, Lattanzio's first 14 games in a full season, right? Because obviously he was interim that first season, but 5 wins, 6 losses, 3 draws, and a -6 goal difference, 7th in the Eastern Conference. 2024, we've got Dean Smith, right? 21 points, 6 wins, 5 losses, 3 draws, a +1 goal difference, and 6th in the East. Somebody made like a joke, like I don't know if you saw the post under our tweet. They were like, "Hey, we just need 5 more coaches to get to first place." But obviously from a point perspective, there isn't a big difference, right? But I mean, obviously things that stand out, the goal differential. And also, the thing that's the most obvious is this is with 0 production from DPs. I mean, Enzo had 1 goal. Liel Abada had 1 goal before he got injured.
Breck he's
technically,
let's say DP, but he's not going to be available against Philly, by the way. So, again, I trust Dean Smith on finding resources and just giving his players just ways to progress on the field and create chances. That to me is the next step. Of course, playing on the road, that's another goal that they still have to be more consistent. You're the second best home team in MLS. You just got to keep stacking points. And I've said this before, the MLS regular season gives you 34 chances to get the most points possible just to put you in playoff position. And you're going to get better through the season. And you're going to add more pieces. You're going to bring quality players in the next transfer window. But the hardest thing to find is an identity. And like everyone buying in this tactical and the system that Dean wants. And that to me, it's night and day change from what we saw last year.
Yeah, I think that's what the +1 goal differential tells me is they are more organized, like we've talked about,
Absolutely.
more compact,
Yeah.
and just they have gotten more competitive faster. Both 2022 and 2023, the team worked themselves into a spot where they became competitive as the season progressed.
That's a good point.
Dean Smith has just essentially just accelerated that process to the beginning of the year, which is what was missing.
Yeah, I mean,
With limited resources again.
Exactly.
So that's
100%.
even
plus
remarkable.
one goal differential and probably the weakest attacking line they've had.
Yeah.
As well, which is crazy.
Which I think actually goes to some of the cultural changes that Dean Smith's made. Carroll didn't seem like he was going to fit in what Smith was trying to do. He was willing to cut him rather than just being like trying to save face. I think Lattanzio might have tried to save face a little bit with him last year. You know, maybe not just Lattanzio, that might be just on the whole organization in terms of, I really think like Carroll, the way Carroll was approaching last year, he really wanted to leave based on his own messaging to the public. Right. He was ready to be gone. And so if Dean was in charge last year, I'm pretty sure he would have been gone in the summer just based on how he kind of is approaching the culture. If you don't want to be here, you're not going to play here.
Yeah.
Right? And that sets the tone for everything else. So that means, well, you're going to have to find a DP who's going to play here, because if you sign somebody and then Smith finds out that he actually isn't really interested in Charlotte as much as maybe was thought of on the surface, Smith won't play him. And so I think that's going to be a huge cultural change to how signings are approached also in the summer. Yeah,
those are the added extra positives of having a coach that has experience.
Yeah.
Right? He's been under pressure before in bigger leagues with, tougher teams where he's like, it doesn't matter who you are here. I don't care if you're a DP or you're just coming out of college, right? I'm going to base you off of what I see and what I think you can do, right? Or if you don't want to be here, like you said, you're out. I mean, Tiger Smalls has come in. He's tried him out, right? Yeah. Nimfasha at the beginning of this, he's like, you know what? I kind of like Nimfasha. Let's try him out, So, I mean, that speaks to the level of coaching. Like, if there's one thing that we can attribute a major change in this season that the front office has done a great job of, is that, like, so far they're getting it right. They mentioned the ambition was different, that they thought that they could get more out of this team. I was a little hesitant, seeing this Dean Smith. I'm starting to believe more and more that there is more in this squad.
And if you see the extension of Dean Smith on the pitch, that's Ashley Westwood. And Ashley embodies that culture.
100%.
And he understands, playing at Burnley and being in the Premier League. And that's, the type of leaders that you want on your team. And Ashley, again, I think he really is a Dean Smith extension on the field, and he's very vocal. He's 34 and he keeps running. He hasn't missed any single minute this year, but he controls the tempo. He's very technical. He's smart. He sometimes drops between the two center backs. If things are getting ugly in terms of, hey, we're not finding spaces, I'm going to help you guys. If you give him maybe a number 10, another attacking midfielder just to connect and have that, structure, Ashley's just fantastic on and off the pitch. Yeah. He's a true leader, a great captain, and again, he embodies the spirit and the new culture that Dean brought. And
also, what's important too, he can win you a game every once in a while. I mean, against Chicago, that was a perfect free kick.
Only bangers. Right? That's all he knows. Yeah.
I mean, he's the first player to actually have a chant that, is sticking, And so I heard it this weekend too, the whole supporter section. Ashley Westwood, right? And like you're mentioning, that's a perfect way of putting it. He's an extension of Dean Smith on the pitch. I mean, ever since he came, even last year, there were moments I can remember, like Patrick Ajimang's first game playing where he was upset that they lost. They're like, hey, we didn't do a good job for Patrick tonight. And I'm like, these are the like small things that you notice. And I love that 90 minutes, the last 7 days, you see him come out of a locker room just eating a pizza, chilling, walking out. Like, that's my captain right there.
That's the identity you want. And as a fan base, you feel identified with him. 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's just we talk a lot about how they needed to rotate for, like, they had 3 games in like 7 days, but not for Ashley, right?
No.
Just the fact that he could do the 270 minutes in a week and it was like didn't really even seem to phase him all that much is I think just long term, that should really push some of these other younger guys to really know that there's
That's a
another
good
level
point.
they can get to.
Yeah.
Only the 5th yellow card will slow down Ashley a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
unfortunately he's gonna come. He's part of the
Yeah.
league. It's
And he
it
has
is
that
the rule.
aggression on the field. I think it was him and Ricky that were like
Yeah,
going
standing
at
up
it.
for your teammates.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, is Ashley Westwood in line to be Charlotte FC's first ever legend?
Yeah, and he's got to be close to Carroll in terms of the goal scoring, and Carroll be playing in the World Cup. And when things really got ugly, Sudersky, he responded. But Ashley, in another role, he's a different player, but he's just sending the same energy message, or even a better message. But I think he's going to be, soon to be the iconic player that we've been looking for, not just because of how he plays, but the way he carries himself with the teammates and with the fan base.
True leader,
Yeah.
a true example. The first one that's always willing to talk after losses, even during the tough times last year,
because
you
of
know?
what a captain does soon.
100%.
And if you see what the Charlotte FC Academy's Twitter page
Yeah.
posts a lot, he's always like, there's always videos of him like
a good point.
watching tape with the U15s and the U17s. He's working with them. He's sort of like just planting his philosophy all the way from the ground up. Which so I mean, that will be, I think, how Westwood goes down as a true legend in Charlotte. Will be that everybody growing up will have embodied kind of what he has left behind.
Yeah, I love that. You're right about that. And even something that stuck out to me too was when I did the interview with Dean Smith, like one of the conversations that he had with Ashley was like, hey, when you come here, just embrace it.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely done that. Just embrace the city, embrace the culture, and just brought something different right into this team, right? And so it's cool starting to see like leaders here that aren't just like good people, but are great quality players that are also making a difference on the pitch. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about some major news that we saw yesterday, right? Our man Tom
Coming
Boger,
from Germany? Oh, not the Panthers going to Germany. I'm talking another team that's going to play Champions League final, maybe?
Another team that's going to play a Champions League final. Marco Reus is in. Tom Boger tweeted that Charlotte FC is in active talks to sign Marco Reus. According to him, Charlotte have been pursuing the legend for a while now. They've held multiple talks. He said nothing imminent, but Charlotte do hold his discovery rights. Brian, as a huge Dortmund fan, talk to me about when you heard this news.
Well, I mean, I have his kit, right? So
Yeah.
as soon as this news dropped, well, really, it started catching my eye. As soon as I saw the first report that Royce was even interested in MLS, I was just like, oh my God, please. To Charlotte. And then as soon as I saw the rumors swirling, I was just like, I mean, I'm going to be praying all the way until the end. I know there's obviously, it seems like a long shot. I mean, it's always going to be a long shot for sort of like a more mid-level city like Charlotte compared to a lot of the other hot spots in the U.S. to try to get some of these bigger names. But at the end of the day, I mean, it would just be for me, he's one of my favorite players to watch. He's been one of my favorite players to watch for years and years now. So I would over the moon. I would be over the moon if he actually came to Charlotte.
Nah, he's still balling in Dortmund.
Yeah.
He ended with double-digit numbers in assists and goals. He scored a free kick in the very last game. Yeah. He's going to play in the Champions League final. Again, look, as you said, it looks like a long shot, but this team is trying just to really bring a big piece on this transfer window, and Marco is kind of the type of player that the Charlotte is going to pursue.
That's the one thing. Okay, like we talked about early on at the beginning of the season of the ambition of player that they're trying to get, right? Yeah. But this window, right? Obviously, I love the ambition, but it has to happen.
Right now. Yeah,
like you don't get trophies for good intentions, right? Yeah. You get trophies or you get the accolades because you're able to make it happen. I think who was it? Was it Rodri that said that? Talking about like as Man City won the title, he was like, you know what? Arsenal had a great season, but you know, they came here and looked for a draw, right? And he was like, our mentality is to go win every game. He's like, you don't get, he said something amongst those lines, right? And I mean, we have to see that same thing here, right? Okay, we see a link like that. I like seeing, you know, because it shows me the ambition of the club has.
Yep. Yeah, like also like Grönbeek in the winter window as well. But I mean, at some point we can't just see rumors. We have to see, like you said, we have to see a signing. It has to get across
An offer. Yeah.
It has to get there.
For sure. I mean, I hate to burst everybody's bubble, but there is 0% chance that we are gonna get Marco Reus here. I mean, there's a better chance that Charlotte switches from turf to natural grass. There's a better chance that there's no cookout line at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night. I mean, there's a better chance that Reverend Rob of Apple Auto Sales heals your credit for all my Charlotte people. It's just the reality, you know? I mean, from my understanding, Charlotte have pursued him, but he has no interest in being here, you know? And to me, if there's a definite no to come to Charlotte, then at some point, you just got to move on to whatever other targets that they do have.
No, but it looks like they're really working just to get a couple of attacking players, and either if it's Royce or they go to find a different profile. Again, it's not just trying to get players. I think they're going to bring two very interesting and heavy names. And, you know, you had a great point, Brian, about St. Louis also pushing for Marco Reus, and how their sporting directors linked with Bundesliga might narrow the gap. But also, Dean has maybe narrowed that, you know, gap and the
100%.
And the you know, when you're trying to offer something to a player, you're showing now this project.
Yeah,
and that might play another, you know, piece in the puzzle to get and attract more players.
Because in the past you could say,
Marco
like,
Reus.
we have, you know, a great atmosphere. We're a team that's growing in MLS, but the coaching was always questionable. Now you're like, hey, we've got an experienced Premier League coach here. You see the foundation that we're setting, right? This team is primed for whoever you, a.k.a. Star, are to come in here and take us to the promised land, take us to the next level.
Yeah, well, and look, also with a more experienced player, when you're trying to bring in a true like legend of a club like a Marco Reus, you're not going to be able to sell the atmosphere, right? Because Marco Reus was in front of one of the best atmospheres there is in
hard to match,
in all
that
of
yellow
soccer.
wall.
So, like, you got to be able to sell them on something more in terms of what the project actually is that you're
That's a good
developing.
point. Yeah,
so
yeah,
there's going to have to be, like, I feel like the atmosphere will sell on, like, for like a Leah Labada, you know, like a young up and coming player who's still like trying to make a name for themselves. Charlotte's atmosphere could easily sell them on that. But for those experienced, if you're like trying to get, like, I mean, Tony Cruz is another name who's like, he's a free agent, right? But if you're going to try to bring, I mean, the atmosphere isn't going to sell them.
For sure.
You're going to have to find something deeper, like you said, the Dean Smith, like,
project,
how he can sell the project. I think this is also where Ashley Westwood, another element of what Ashley Westwood can do. Can he also present the project of what they're doing to Charlotte as the captain of the team? So I think that's another big key factor for what Westwood can do as we approach the summer.
Well, I mean, they use him for Dean Smith as well, right?
Yep.
To say, hey, like, Dean had a conversation with him, what's Charlotte like? And, you know, Brit to Brit, he was able to tell him what he's seeing here.
Yep.
So, and then we have a subscriber question that fits perfectly into this from Evan. And his question is, do we think Charlotte's transfer targets are realistic based on the age of the club and city? Or is there another reason we're not landing more exciting prospects? I really, really like this question. I'll start off with you, Brian.
Well, I mean, you have to shoot your shot, and you have to shoot your shot I mean, whether Charlotte's 3 years in or not, I mean, Messi's in the league, right?
Yeah.
So you have to go for, there's going to be bigger names. I mean, we already saw Olivier Giroud is going to LAFC, right? Big names are going to be coming. They've already started in the winter window. It was a record winter window. This summer window, I'd imagine, is going to be another record-setting summer. Charlotte has to find a way to get involved, and if that's, going after experienced players, you have to go for it, because there's never going to be a better time than now in terms of trying to attract, just experienced players, big names. I mean, with Messi in the league right now, you have to go for it. And there's going to be times when you lose out to maybe a Miami or an LA. Yeah. But I think
now they're losing out a lot on these. But to me, we're never gonna get that A-tier Messi type of player. But I think there's potential to get that A-, B+ player. I'm talking your maybe Firminos. I'm talking maybe, your Coutinhos, players that like have played, that have a name, and that you may be able to convince to come to a Charlotte market versus in LA or Miami. And it also is going to depend on the ambition of that player as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Ricky Puig to me still has talent to play in Europe.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we saw it this weekend, right? But he's in LA, he's in a...
Or Bernardeschi with Toronto this year, he's really, really good. So, look, there's a lot of factors involved in transfers and which player you're going to land. The scouting report, the scouting department, they do their job. Then the sporting director are going to start the offers and just evaluating the players that really fit what we have here right now and what we need, because we can't lie, we have some holes there up front and we need some certain players. And also looking at some other options in the MLS market, I was talking to Jorge. I'm not doing any inside information whatsoever, but it's just my point of view. Maybe a guy like Leo Campana could, help Patrick Ayaman pushing that number 9 role.
You heard it here first, Toño.
I like how Patrick, we talked about him, but I don't want him comfortable. And I think he's he's hungry with, all the opportunities that he has been given, but I just don't want him to be comfortable saying, okay, I know that I'm the number 9 because there's no one right now.
Yeah.
So, and
plus it would be crazy to just leave him. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone that comes here as a number 9, it will be very hard to get Patrick out of the starting lineup because he's going to fight, he's going to show, he's going to score goals. It's not going to be easy. Anyone comes like the Enzo Copetti replacement, Patrick's not going to make it easy for those guys.
For sure. I mean, I love that, right? That's kind of what you want. You want that next man up ready to go if you're not there to be a starter. And I mean, like, Patrick proved it. Patrick earned the confidence of the club saying we're okay with letting Enzo go right now because Patrick will give us goals. He will do stuff for us.
Absolutely.
Right? Obviously, like you mentioned, I don't think, to me, still, like, we can't just depend on him, right?
Yep.
We need probably another DP striker coming in this window. If you can't get a DP, a solid backup or a solid guy that could push Pat right till the end of the season. Because to me, they have to get that center attacking midfielder, yes this freaking window.
Yeah, they really got to nail the timing on that. I mean, I think the big thing you talked about, Toño, you talked about the scouting department and like how important that is to really, this window. I mean, that was all about the Leo Labada signing. That was the scouting department having planned. I mean, they had been looking at him since
for
his
months.
Time in Israel.
Yeah, years
before
maybe.
Celtic. So it had been years and years, right, of them kind of and up until what had, how his relationship with the Celtic fan base ended, that was kind of what opened the door for him to even come to Charlotte at all. Before that, Zoran had said, like, he was not even an option for us, right? He's not, he had. You
got to be patient and wait for the opportunity for the player you've been tracking, but also if the market fits, your needs and the moment, you just go for it. You pull the trigger.
But I know they've mentioned, okay, summer window, there's more opportunity. Every DP that we've signed basically has come in a winter window, though. Yeah. Karol Swiderski, Kamil Yazviak, Leo Labada. Yeah. Who am I missing? Enzo Copetti, right? Breck de Jager came in the summer, but,
Well, Kerwin and Malanda, they're not DPs, but they came in the summer.
But, like, that main DP
I know.
has come in that winter window. So, okay, well, show us this window. Get us that high-quality 10 that this club needs, right? Dean has set the foundation. Now it is up to the front office to take what this man has done and help him get it to the next level, right?
And it's all about links and connections also.
Yeah.
We talked about it before.
Yeah, there's very little that we could blame Dean if the season if they don't continue this trajectory to the ends of the season, because he's doing the best. He's arguably getting more out of what he has, right? And if the club is not helping him out, right, or bringing that quality player, then if we end up 10th or 9th, like, well, the manager did what he could.
Yeah, for sure. I think this could be the window where we really see just how valuable Smith is on the recruiting side of things.
Yeah,
he has been important. Aston Villa, played a big role in a lot of their recruiting. In terms of a lot of the young players, especially they got in the young players he developed there. So I'm really interested to just see what potentially his role is and all that. If there's some signings that are connected to him from the past in terms of just like how he helps bring in some of those signings. Somebody's coming. There's no way they don't sign. They don't make a splash signing. That is one other thing. I feel like the Charlotte FC front office has been willing to splash and make the signing. It just hasn't always been the right one.
For sure.
So I think that's the other big point. Like, they're willing to spend some money. They've already, they broke the last 2 winter windows. They broke their own record, right? With the Enzo Capetti signing, that was a record transfer. And then this following winter, Leo Abada was another record signing. So I think the money will be there, which is, obviously that's key, right? That differentiates Charlotte from an RSL, that differentiates them from a Colorado where they don't really splash very often.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, you can splash the money, but you have to get the right guy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think, Tom Bogert said it today in his WFNZ interview with Willie. He said, Charlotte were able to turn the head of a Luciano who, he said, to be honest, has no business being in MLS, which is true, right?
Yep.
So if they could do that, they're just that one little step away from changing everything for this team if they bring in that high-quality caliber player. And hopefully, we've gone in the past for injury-prone players, so knock on wood, stay away from that, right?
No, and when July starts, you got to activate all those notifications so we can really know when our next reinforcements are coming. And I'm very positive that it's going to be a couple of attacking players that they're going to contribute a lot with already a solid group with Kerwin, Abada, and Patrick Ayaman. As you said, Jorge, even guys like Giacomakis need another number 9 to help him with the load.
Sure.
And guys like Dejan Jovelic with Miguel Berry that we saw this weekend. So you need depth up front, absolutely.
For sure. Awesome. And then finally, let's talk a little bit about Philadelphia, right? A team that's topsy-turvy. They just come from a 3-0 win against New England, but New England's another monster of its own, right? So they've had a tough season. Obviously, I think Philadelphia has had their own problems. Andre Blake came out and mentioned how he wasn't happy, right? And so, if there's a time to play Philadelphia, it's right now.
Yeah, this is easily the worst Philadelphia I have seen in several years.
Yep.
And it just seems like, I don't know if it's a cultural change, which is kind of crazy because it's still the same crew, right? Jim Curtin's still leading.
Do you think it's Jim's last year? I really like him in the project there to me, it feels like they have the same squad for maybe 3-4 years, the same lineup, which is a great lineup. But sometimes, and I don't think the sporting director is going to just fire a legendary coach like Jim Curtin, but doesn't it maybe feel like it probably would be
you need something
last
different.
year in Philly?
That's what you're saying?
Well, I don't know. He did sign an extension, if I'm not mistaken, pretty recently.
Okay,
so
yeah.
But he has also at the same time said some things that were kind of like, for me, not very Jim Curtin-esque. I think it was last season, and I think he also reiterated this point this season as well, where he kind of talked about his issues with the salary cap and the salary and the roster rules and things like that, which is kind of ironic coming from a club like Philadelphia, who I would say has maybe used the roster rules to their advantage better than any other club. And so it's kind of funny that he would be one of the coaches to kind of be negative about the roster rules. But I think he's mentioned that a couple of times as well, that he would kind of like to see some of those changes happen. But I don't really know if I don't know what's wrong with Philly. It doesn't really make sense because it is, like you said, it's a strong roster. It's the same roster that they've had.
Yeah,
the same roster.
A lot of consistency there. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at, these guys all were the same crew that dominated in 2022 when they were putting up record numbers, clean sheets, goals, all of it. They're still putting up a lot of volume in terms of goal scoring, but what's crazy is how many goals they're giving up. I think that's really what's most alarming to me is they've turned into one of those MLS Gone Wild style teams like a Portland or a San Jose, where they score some and give up a lot. And so that's kind of just what's most alarming to me about Philadelphia, is that it's so out of character for them to give up the kind of goals that they have been giving up. Their X goal differential or X goals against is one of the worst in MLS, which is just, for me, super surprising out of Philadelphia.
Yeah, he signed an extension last year through 2026.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it would be crazy to let him go, right? And plus, you know what? It's still early in the season to a degree.
Right.
You know, look at SKC
They're
last
going to
year.
make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the thing about MLS.
Playoff caliber team.
Yeah.
With Carranza, Gaza, Gure, McLean. And they still have pretty good academy. They're just been developing guys and selling guys to Europe. And there's another one coming in near future. So, but yeah, as you said, Jorge, if it's the right moment to face Philly, it's probably right now.
From a tactical standpoint, Toño, what kind of changes would you see in maybe heading into this match? Do we keep that midfield trio of Bronico and Diani and Westwood? Do we put Petkovic in? You know, obviously we'll be missing Brecht, right? So does Tiger start or does Kerwin go on the right and we see Yuri on the left? Like what would you see?
That's a good question. Who's gonna be replacing Brecht? But I think I would run with the same Diani, Westwood, Bronico because of the profile of the players that you're facing.
Yeah, that's right.
The guys like the Ure, the Carranza, there's a lot of players that just in between lines, they do a lot of damage. And Bronico does a great job just shadowing everyone and controlling and just covering Ashley. And I like Diani's positioning. When he plays a little bit higher, this team breathes a lot and you find more spaces. I really think it could be an interesting game. Just seeing maybe Nathan Byrne going a little bit higher because of the way that Philly plays, and they might leave a little bit more spaces. So let's see if Vuoren is back on the lineup. But I will rock with the same 4-3-3 flat. And yeah, that's a good question. Who's gonna be the winger alongside Kerwin and with Patrick on top? That will be an interesting conversation during this week.
So,
and if Lialabada is back,
and if, which is still
which circumstances he will be back.
Yeah, right? So we'll see. I mean, Dean said that they're shooting for this weekend, but no promises, right?
Yeah, maybe the fifth yellow for the Jager didn't come in a great moment, but it is what it is.
For sure. And I mean, to be honest, I don't think he's been producing to the level that he should on the wing anyways, right? So based on what Toño's telling me, Brian, anytime we see players in the midfield with a great touch that, you know, have quality, we're going to see this 3 CDM run, huh?
Yeah. And I do feel like Diani is maybe the key midfielder.
Absolutely.
In this situation because of the way Philadelphia press and the way they're very aggressive off the ball.
That's the way to progress, in my opinion, with Diani.
Have a player like Diani who's tidy with the ball, good with his touch, and can create and pass a little bit from deeper spots. I think that's going to be really pivotal. I do think if Abada is not ready to go, I'd actually be interested in having Vargas switch to the right. Vargas, for me, is probably Charlotte's best defensive winger right now. And the left side is where Philly is going to attack the most, with Kai Wagner coming up from the left and from the left back spot.
That's a good point.
If Abada isn't ready to go from the start, I would personally move Vargas over to the right. I'm more comfortable with that pairing of Vargas and Byrne than probably any other pairing on that wing. Defensively, because, I mean, Kai Wagner's going to get his chances to cross in the ball, and you're going to want some defensive support. I don't really trust anybody else on Charlotte's roster right now, which is kind of funny to say now, because I feel like back in 2022, Kerwin Vargas was not a very good defensive winger, but I think he's improved in that area a lot to where I think right now he's the best. So I would put him over there for that purpose and sacrifice a little bit of that attacking threat that he brings on the left. I think Yuri Tavares, for me, can provide attacking threat on the left if you need to have that kind of switch be made.
And we know he can play better, and still him, Yuri, and Tiger, they're still young guys developing.
Yeah.
And Dean is trusting them and just giving them opportunities because of the resources that we have, but also you just gotta play them.
Yeah.
And
I mean, like, you saw Tiger, right? He had that 1v1 he missed, but, you know, he created that opportunity, and Dean sees that in his game, right? So, I mean, I love that. I love that he trusts some of these young players, right? And while I look at it and I start questioning it, I mean, that's why he's the coach, and I'm just talking about the team, you know? So we'd love to see it. And obviously, I think, like, having a profile striker like Patrick Ajiman for games like this is very beneficial as well. You know, where games that can get rough. I mean, like nobody's gonna bully Patrick Ajiman.
Have you seen those defenders' faces when they're just trying to pursue Patrick? Again, one thing that I really wanted to talk to you guys is we're very, of course, focused on Charlotte FC. We covered the team, but I really want to know the perspective of the other teams, how they really are challenging those teams to just coming play here. Charlotte FC is so hard.
Yeah, just that itself.
Just try to see the big picture, and from the opposition's perspective, it's not easy to play Charlotte FC.
Yeah,
it really is not easy. It gives you a really hard time just to find spaces. Again, the expected goals allowed is the second lowest in MLS. So that when you have a squad that is just challenging oppositions like Dean's team is doing right now, I mean, it's not a comfortable game for other MLS teams. So I'm really interested in just listening what other teams say about us, because how they, you know, maybe not a bigger threat up front. You're gonna need more players, as we've talked in this podcast. But again, it's not an easy team to play against. It's not fun to play against Patrick Ayman and just running against him for 90 minutes. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I would stack Charlotte against anybody at home. You know, even with the limitations of this squad, like you mentioned, right? Like anyone coming here, that's why to me, like having a home playoff game can really make a difference this year. You know, and so hopefully, if we end in one of those spots, right, versus finishing ninth and having to go play God knows where, right? I think can really make a difference, right? And like you mentioned, like to me, just get that. You finish 6th or 7th, okay, good. Then a whole nother tournament starts.
Exactly.
So
and this May month has been just
exceptional
and exhausting as well for the players. There's a lot of games, and they've accomplished to be in the 6th position right now. Even though in Chicago you didn't play fantastic, you didn't play great. Even Ashley Westwood said, against Galaxy, you need to suffer at some points. But at the end of the day, these are games that you're getting points, which last year probably you go empty on those games.
Yeah,
they did. I mean, that was, I think last year was the big issue, was they didn't take advantage of take care of business when they had a favorable schedule. While this month is packed, these are a lot of favorable matchups,
for sure.
Right? June, if you're looking at June, July, those matchups are way, way, way less favorable, right? Going into Leagues Cup. So I think that's, for me, also has just been one of the things that Smith has shown is like, look, when the points are there for the taking, he's getting them. Because there's going to be stretches of this season where it's just like, look, like that stretch, we talked about this in the last show, when they have 5 of 6 on the road.
Yeah.
Tough to get points in that situation against any, opposition when you have that many road games.
Yeah.
So, like, being the fact that they're getting the points when they should be getting them is
and
just
also
a big change.
That, like, cultural switch for Dean Smith, because in the Premier League, you play for a championship every single weekend.
Yeah.
And you play just for a playoff berth here. Yeah. That switch, that's quite a challenge for him as well. And just adapting to understanding just what it takes through 34 games, just get the points to be in the playoffs, and then you're going to have a chance. Imagine if he had a chance with his teams in the Premier League, just end 6th place, and then just give me a slight chance to be champion.
Yeah, for sure.
That's also a huge praise for him.
I've also heard him multiple times in the press conference try to instill this mindset that, like, it doesn't matter if we're home and away. We need to be the same type of team. And I really like that. Like, obviously, we know the disparity between Charlotte at home and away, but the fact that he continues to push. I mean, if he's pushing that message out to the media, I can only imagine what he's saying inside that locker room to try to get these guys right. Like, I think that stability that he's putting into this team as well, right? Where, I mean, he mentioned it before, like he felt like they were a little too emotional at times. And he's like, okay, like we need to be even keel at home and away. Like, hey, let's make sure we understand what we're trying to accomplish. And for him to try to push that mindset, I think long term, when we start, like, we'll start seeing more and more favorable results when we go away.
Yeah, I think that this road game, next week after the Philly home game against New York Rebels is going to be really a telling one because New York is a solid team. So depending on how they show up, on the road against New York will be a real telling sign of how that message from Smith is getting across to the players.
For sure. And let's just quickly go then some score predictions. What are you thinking this weekend?
Oh, I think Charlotte are definitely good favorites in this matchup. I think they match up well against Philly. I'm going to say 2-0. Keep the clean sheet streak going.
Who scores them?
Ajimon with 1. And I'm gonna give one to Abada, his return.
Okay, so not only you're gambling that he'll play, but dang, that camping trip's really got you motivated. Toño?
I'll go 1-0 Charlotte with Patrick scoring.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I think we'll see some goals this weekend. I'm gonna go with your score as well, 2-0. I'd love for them to keep another clean sheet.
Yep.
I think Yuri will come in and score a goal, and then I think we'll see we'll see a penalty and Diani will take it.
Nice.
We're due for another home penalty.
Yeah.
So, with that said, Brian, where can people find you?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Mauer Media. You can also find all my written content at Topbin90.com. Shout out to all the writers. We actually just hit over 300 articles this past week. So
that is
in the last
awesome,
couple of years.
bro.
So yeah,
you remember that conversation we had a long time ago? We're like, hey man, we're just starting the website. Fast forward, we're 300 articles in. I cannot believe that. So you've been crucial, detrimental to you've been the Dean Smith and Ashley Westwood of Topbin90, dude. So I really appreciate everything that you do here. 300 articles is no easy feat, and you've done a great job of just leading that line for us. So I really appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man.
Toño, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Ramos019. Of course, you can listen to our broadcast next Saturday, 106.1 FM in Spanish. If you want to improve your Spanish, you can listen to us.
100%, yeah.
You're going to the stadium, you can just turn on the app, and really happy again to be here with you guys.
We love having you on.
Yeah.
You're like an extension of our family as well.
So I'm like the Ashley Westwood of Topbin. The extension.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it.
You're like the other Ashley Westwood.
Yeah.
You're like the DP that we're waiting for.
As Ashley on the pitch. Yeah. But anytime, guys. Thank you.
Nice. Awesome. With that, Jorge Gonzalez, Topbin90. Guys, thank you so much. Hopefully, the next time we're here, we're coming back with more wins. Go!